1. So this happened to me almost 7 years ago now. I should give some background info before getting into things. At the time this all happened, I was around 16 years old, and I had a friend that I'll call Karen, who was dating a boy named John. At this point in time, Karen and John have been dating for maybe 6 months, and after going out with Karen and John on many occasions, they decided that they wanted to hook me up with John's friend, we'll call him Cameron. At this point in time, I had met Cameron in person once. He was nice, so I gave him my social media, and we had chatted a couple of times. It's important to note he didn't have my number or know where I live. Now it's time for the story. Fast forward to one night, maybe a week or two after I met Cameron. I'm laying in bed. It's about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I get a call from an unknown number. Thinking, why the hell is an unknown number calling me at this time of night? I decide to answer it and see who it is. So I answer the phone and I say hi, and a man responds saying hi back. Since I didn't recognize the voice on the other end, I ask the person who they are. Instead of giving me an answer to this question, the man on the line tells me to look outside my window. Thinking this is probably a prank call, I tell the man to F off and hang up the phone. Once I did this, the number calls back again. Didn't answer it. The person then proceeds to call me another 4 times until I finally answer the phone, which again I ask who the heck is calling. This time the person responds and tells me that one of my friends gave him my number, and that I am the guy he's been talking to. At this point, my stupid 16-year-old mind is trying to rationalize this, and the only person I can think of is Cameron. Before I can say anything to this person, he again tells me to look out my window, and I begin hearing noises outside my window. Now I should mention that my room is right beside my parents' room, and being stupid, my first thought was that this fool was going to wake them up, and I'd never hear the end of it. Let me tell you, that thought soon turned into the last thing I would worry about that night. Anyway, at this point, I'm also starting to get creeped out. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this is Cameron, and Karen did give him my number, how the hell would he know where I live? So I reply to the man and say, Cameron? The man says yes and tells me to look out my window. I reply, telling him to go home, and hang up the phone again. Weirded out, I decide I'm going to get up and go into my basement and call Karen, so that hopefully my parents don't hear me talking from my room. This is really important because to get into my basement I'd have to pass a door that is partially made of glass. So I get downstairs and call Karen. She answers, clearly half asleep. I tell Karen about the unknown call, which I'm assuming is from Cameron, and how he is telling me to look out my window because he's outside, and on top of this, that I can hear someone out there. Karen, now clearly awake, tells me she has never given Cameron my number or address, and calls John quickly from her phone to see if maybe he did. At this point, John answers and tells Karen that not only had he never given my information out, he is with Cameron. They tell me if someone's outside I need to hang up and call the police immediately. So I hang the phone up, and before I can even dial for anyone, I get another call. Guess who? Unknown number. So I stupidly answer again, and before I get a word in, a man tells me that he knows I'm in my basement. He saw me walking by my back door. Now I'm clearly disturbed, as I did just walk by my back door to get downstairs, so I know someone is outside. Again, before I could say anything, the man tells me to come outside. So stupidly I tell the person I'm calling the police and hang up the phone. Why I didn't call the police at this point I really don't know. Probably because I was 16, stupid, and literally in panic mode. Not more than a minute later I get another call, unknown number. I answer again. Then the man tells me to come outside or he's coming inside to get me. Panicking at this point, I have this deep gut feeling that if I go outside I'm never coming back. However, I do have to go by the door again to get back upstairs, and that was equally terrifying me. So I hang up the phone again and muster up the courage to run upstairs because the last place I wanted to be was in a part of my house no one else was in. I get more calls, unknown number, unknown number, unknown number. Again, my 16-year-old stupidity answers. This time the voice on the phone sounds shook and says to me that the police stopped him outside my house and want to speak to me and make sure I know him. The phone then gets passed off to someone who identifies themselves by name with some title I no longer remember, and asks if I know the man outside my address. He says my house number and street. I quickly tell the voice on the phone I don't have any idea who the person calling me is and hang up the phone. Never got another call again. However, I did sit there all night holding a bat and had problems sleeping for months. I should also mention I didn't have many friends at this point in my life. And looking back on this night, I thought maybe this was a prank taken too far. However, I begged the few friends I did have for months to admit that one of them were the person who pulled this off. And to this day, they all insist none of them did this. So whatever got this person to stop calling me, thank God. And to the unknown caller, let's not meet. 2. So I live in an apartment complex right next to a 7-Eleven, literally a 2-minute walk from my door. So since all this quarantine lockdown mess, I've been staying up later than usual, till maybe 2 or 3 a.m. most nights. So last night, a little bit after 12, I had a taste for some chips and I decided I'll just go across the street to 7-Eleven, which I go to regularly. So I make my way over, and on my way in, I had to pass this man who was browsing on the red box kiosk. I don't think much of it. I go inside, get some snacks, pay, head out the door. As I'm coming out, the red box man is literally staring dead at me with these scarily bright light blue eyes. But not wanting to freak myself out even more, I say to myself, maybe he's zoned out and deep in thought. I wander into La La Land myself sometimes, so by thinking that, I was trying to make myself more comfortable having to walk past this strange man. So I'm headed back into my apartment complex, which on this side of the street has a creaky gate door. I realized as I was walking I never heard it slam behind me like I always have before. I look back, and this man is right behind me. Not up close on me, but still definitely following. Once again, trying to ease my mind, I think he must be going home. But I also noticed he didn't have any disc in his hand, for as much as he was at the kiosk the whole time I was in the store, taking my sweet and decisive time, so not wanting to come off as scared, I keep my same pace. But I probably should have sprinted because fuck being nice. Anyways, I'm literally just a few steps away from my door, which is upstairs, and the man randomly calls out to me, "Hey, do you have a lighter?" Out of instinct, I turned my head to the fact that I knew someone was speaking to me and responded, "No, I don't, sorry." I didn't want to go up my stairs because I didn't want to let this man know exactly which apartment I live in, so I was planning on walking around until I lost him. But he asked me another question. "Could I use your bathroom?" I tell him no, sorry, my roommates probably wouldn't be comfortable with me letting someone in this late. I don't have roommates, but I damn sure didn't want this man getting any ideas thinking I was by myself. I keep walking, but this man was still following me. I simply ask, "Do you live around here?" And he tells me, "I have a buddy that does, and he was supposed to meet me across the way there, but maybe he fell asleep. I've never been here before, but I do know his door is number 201. Could you help me find it?" 201 is my door. Plus, if you have a friend that lives over here, why are you asking to use my bathroom? I knew this man was lying and up to something. I quickly come up with 201. That should be right past the pool, right next to the laundry area. My friends are waiting for me, so I should get going. My gut told me to head to my car, though, because what if he watched where I was going and decides to give me a surprise later on? No. I watch too many horror movies and read too many stories. So I start heading towards the parking lot, not running, but definitely walking quicker than before, when I realize the man is chasing me at this point. I hurry up and pull my keys out of my pocket and get in my car and immediately lock the doors. The man starts pounding on my driver window, telling me to open the door, bitch! I can't help but focus on those creepy blue eyes, but I also noticed he was reaching for his pocket. I start up my car before I can see what it is he's going to pull out. I heard a pop, but I didn't give a fuck at that point as long as I could maybe get out of his presence. I drove maybe 5 minutes down the street to this Arco gas station and called the police. Waiting on the police to arrive, I noticed what the popping sound was. This wacko popped my back tire with probably a switchblade. Of course, when the police arrived and went to check the area, he was gone. They did question the 7-Eleven clerk, and he let them know that the man has been up there a few times since last week, and never has been a problem, but is obviously homeless. I'm still shook up about what went on last night, and I'm going to chill on the late-night trips to 7-Eleven for a while. To the fucked up red box man, let's not meet again, but if we do, I have a taser for that ass on its way from Amazon. Try me. 3. So I have to preface this story by saying that yes, I was young and dumb, and made some major mistakes here. I don't need any judgment, trust me, I know how stupid I was. Now, on with the story. I was 18 years old and had just joined the army. I was doing my basic training in Georgia in the middle of the summer. I was struggling with some mental issues at the time, and to make a long story short, I was in the process of getting chaptered out of the army, aka quitting. My squad mates and even drill instructors had all told me it was going to take months for me to get out, and I'd still be stuck there past Christmas. Mind you, this was in June. I was very distraught about the thought of being stuck there, forced to do meaningless chores till January, while my mental state deteriorated. But then a drill sergeant decided it would be fun to deceive me, and convinced me that if I went AWOL, ran away, and made it home, they would simply send me my discharge papers and I would be free. Looking back now, that was clearly a trick, but at the time I was desperate, and bought into what he said. I hatched a plan to sneak out at night with a buddy of mine from another unit. We were going to walk on the train tracks into the nearest town and catch a bus home. Easy enough, right? The night finally came for our escape, and I snuck out of my barracks and headed to the meeting spot. Upon arrival, I realized my buddy wasn't there, and after waiting 30 minutes, I realized he wasn't coming. It was too late for me to try to sneak back in, so I was on my own. No big deal. I headed to the tracks and made a right onto them, heading in what I thought was the direction of the town. Boy, was I wrong. Walking on the tracks in the middle of the night surrounded by woods was a bit creepy, but I figured it wouldn't be long and I'd be where I needed to go. After walking for over an hour, it hit me that maybe these tracks weren't going to take me where I needed to go. And when a dirt path came up, I made the stupid decision to leave the tracks and follow the path. The path led me past some fake houses, set up for training, and continued into the woods. This whole time, mind you, it's dark, and I have nothing but the moonlight to see with. I kept hearing noises in the woods, and seeing shapes in the trees and bushes lining my path. Eventually on this path I spotted some kind of wild dog or wolf sitting just off the left side of the path. By the time I had noticed him, it was too late to go back. My only option was forward. I faced the animal, and backed up against the right side of the path as much as possible, and slowly kept moving down the path, never taking my eyes off the canine. Oddly, he never moved or showed aggression, just watched me as I inched by him, possibly because he was full or maybe just not interested in eating me. I honestly have no idea. After passing him, I continued until my path dead-ended in a 50-plus foot drop. At this point, it had been hours out there, hot, alone, scared, and thirsty. I had no idea where I was or what my next move should be. I glanced around my surroundings, and the only thing I could see besides woods was a radio tower, off in the distance to my right. Here is where I made my biggest mistake. I decided the radio tower couldn't be that far away, and someone had to be there and could help me, right? So I left my path, headed into the woods, straight towards the radio tower. It didn't take me long to realize once I headed into the woods that now not only was I lost, but I was lost in the almost pitch-black woods with no way to find my path back. I continued to march in the direction I thought the tower might be in, slowly losing hope of ever seeing anyone again. Now tired and bleeding from my legs thanks to thorn bushes and my dumb idea of wearing shorts, I was on the brink of giving up. I came across a dry creek bed with a log in the middle, and out of frustration and hopelessness, I climbed onto the log and screamed as loud as I could, "Someone help me!" which of course got no response. After several more screams, I heard a rustling in the bushes on the creek bank behind me. I turned around just in time to see 3 wild dogs jump out of the bush, glaring at me like it was dinner time. I absolutely lost it here. I ran in the opposite direction of them as I heard them taking off after me. I was terrified, running through the darkness with them chasing me, screaming at the top of my lungs and thinking this was going to be how I die. Painfully torn apart by wild dogs in the woods and eaten. I don't know how far or long I ran, but eventually I came to a downed tree that was leaning on another, and I scurried up it, praying they couldn't climb. I finally looked behind me and they were gone, nowhere to be seen. I wasn't sure when they had stopped chasing me, but I was relieved that I hadn't become their dinner. The rest of the night is mostly a blur of walking through dark woods and hearing other animals. At one point, I decided I couldn't do it anymore and was just going to lay down and give up. As I sat down facing my own mortality, the thought hit me that they probably wouldn't even think to search the woods for me, and that my family and friends and girlfriend would never have any idea what happened to me. That thought is what kept me going and made me continue to try and find my way out. Eventually, the sun came up, and I had survived the night. The light brought with it some comfort, since I could now see everything. After a few more hours, I stumbled upon a ribbon tied to a tree, which out here could only mean one thing: a land navigation marker for training. I knew if I kept following the ribbons, it would lead me out. And eventually, they led me back to my path, which I walked, until I ran into a sergeant who was headed out in his truck to go fishing. He returned me to my unit, and I paid for my actions and was eventually discharged. I learned a lot from this experience, and have a wonderful life now, and I'm thankful for every day I'm alive. And I will never go into the woods again without a flashlight. While this experience was terrifying and life-changing, I am glad I went the wrong way on the tracks and didn't make it AWOL, or I would have gone to jail and not be where I am today. I will try to answer any questions in the comments section that I see. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 492. I just looked at it, you think I'd remember? Yes it is, 492. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you have a story yourself you'd like to send in, then please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. Now, you've heard me complain frequently, and the people currently listening along in chat as I record, because I'm streaming as I record this one again, they have heard the dogs. They know the dogs are real and exist. The annoying little poopers were barking before I started recording, right? But when I get to the story about the wolves, where I could have done with some canines barking in the background, did they have the courtesy to bark? No. Completely quiet. Honestly. They're happy to ruin my recordings the rest of the time, but when I want them to pitch in and help out, feel free to bark, do they? No, of course they don't. Rude, that's what it is. Just absolutely rude. I was actually thinking of a thing in the last story that I was wondering, does it take so long for someone to get out the army because they're hoping you'll change your mind at the last minute? Is that why there's such a long exit period? I suspect it probably is. But I'm not a military man, I'm a narrating man, so I wouldn't really know for sure. Someone in the chat is asking, do the dogs bother anyone but Hellfreezer? Well, you see, that's the thing. The dogs aren't really a major problem unless you happen to be trying to record audio. The fact of the matter is, most of the noises that annoy me when I'm recording, barking dogs, neighbours banging doors, playing music, farting, whatever it is they do next door, probably wouldn't bother me that much if I wasn't recording. It's just that when I am recording, I'm hypersensitive to all sounds going on around me that aren't meant to be getting picked up by the microphone. Ideally, I'd have a nice little soundproof recording studio, but that's the dream. And hopefully one day, many things I want to do before then. Hopefully one day, and you never know. And okay, this outro is actually running on a bit, so I'm going to wrap things up there. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.